Today's Did You Know real estate number is 17 million. That's the number of Americans who spend half of their earnings on rent. Welcome into the First Time Keys podcast. I am your host, Adam McAllister, and thank you for making this part of your listening day. We are now kicking off episode number 5, halfway to 10, which is coincidentally the temperature that it's been outside here in Pennsylvania. I know much like the rest of the country right now, we're dealing with this polar vortex, and where it is making you have different life decisions when you walk outside. Like, why the hell am I living here? I work in real estate. Why did I decide to live here? You start reflecting back and going, why? Why are we doing this? But it is what it is. Yesterday, I had 4 different clients I was meeting with, 9 total homes I showed. And man, let's just face it, there's nothing fancy or glamorous about wearing 4 to 5 layers of clothing and going out and getting in and out of random people's homes. It is not selling sunset. It is not the Netflix version that you are used to seeing or the HGTV version you're used to seeing. It's just cold. I met met up with a client yesterday. It was our first time meeting, and I'm in hiking boots with a pair of jeans, thick jeans, hoodie with an undershirt underneath that, and a jacket or coat with a hat. And I'm like, look, you are not getting the stereotypical realtor look. You are getting, it's freaking cold. And we're all there. So it is what it is. By the way, fashion update, if you're watching this on YouTube today, the blue Henley. That's right. Not just a black long sleeve. We're going blue Henley today. So fancy. You're welcome. All right, today's show, got a great interview with a fellow agent here in our area. Her name is Isabel Worrell. She has been licensed since 2012, so she's been in the business as long as I have. And we get into a lot of great areas of real estate. Not only talking about first-time home buying, but what are some of the things that she's seeing? You know, what are the things you should be looking out for? And of course, we talk about some fun experiences she's had on showings. And we really get into relationships and why those are so important. Because I think one of the big mistakes that not just first-time home buyers make, but home buyers in general, is trying to treat this like any other purchase. You know, buying a home is not the same as going out and buying a new shirt or buying some new clothes or going out and buying a new pair of sneakers. It's not even like going out and buying a new car. I mean, you can have that done in and out in a day and from the comfort of your own home now, you know, off your laptop or off your phone. Buying a home is still way more involved. And that's why that relationship that you have with your realtor, with your loan officer, with your title company, with your insurance company, like this is a relationship business. And we really do dive into that. So I don't want to waste any more time. I'm going to get into this interview. I hope you enjoyed as much as we enjoyed having it. This is the First Time Keys podcast with your host, Adam McAllister. I'm excited to have a conversation with someone I haven't talked to in quite some time. We actually got in the business together in the same year. That's right. We both have been mentally traumatized by the world of real estate since 2012. So 13 years. And by real estate rules, once you're a realtor for at least 10 years, you have to let everyone know exactly how many years you've been in the business. It just comes with it. And then once you hit 20 and above, it just gets, I mean, it's really, if you think vegans and people that do yoga let you know how long they've been in, you know, what they do, 20-year veterans in real estate, even worse. So joining me today is Isabel Worrell. She is with the Turnkey Realty Group in Camp Hill, PA, which is just across the river from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. For those of you non-PA residents, it's sort of that east side, west side, you know, war that happens amongst the territories. Isabel, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This is my very first podcast, so I don't know if there's a right or wrong way to do it, but I'll try to be as entertaining and helpful as possible.
Absolutely. You're going to be great. This is all about first-time home buyers, first time podcast, just a world of first. So thank you so much. Let me first start with how did you get into this crazy world of real estate?
That's a great question. So I found myself attending open houses on the weekends when I wasn't in the market for a home.
Wait,
So
so you were one of those that now as realtors we're all like, oh my God, what are you doing here?
yeah, now on Sundays I enjoy my free time and I don't want to host an open house all the time. But back then I loved looking at different floor plans, layouts. I was just fascinated by the whole thing. And I've always loved real estate, which sounds really boring. But, some people collect recipes. I would collect pictures of home designs that I loved. So maybe I should have gone into construction. And in any case, here I am. And I still love it. I absolutely do. Yeah.
Now, what did you do before real estate? What was your what was the vocation of Isabel prior to realtor?
Yeah, so I graduated from St. Joe's University in 99 with a psychology degree. Super useful.
Absolutely. I would say that could not be any more fitting.
Yeah, right. I probably use it more now than I did when I did social work. So I did social work. I ran a halfway house for men and women, different houses, coming out of the correctional uh, coming out of a correctional facility. Uh, and then the last one I had, I was a counselor at an inpatient drug and alcohol rehab, court mandated. And so really learned how to listen, really learned how to communicate, asking the right questions, all of those things that's so important. As a real estate agent, I had no idea that I was learning that in a completely different field, but it's the questions that you ask that really tend to help people narrow down and focus on what they can and can't do and go on from there. But yeah,
Yeah.
so social work. um but I wasn't able to just leave it at work, so I'd bring it home with me. And I think all in all that lasted about 5 6 years, and then I started having children, and then I was fortunate enough to have the option to stay home with them. And then, as they grew, I wanted something where I could be flexible with my time, and kind of control my own schedule and still be very involved in their lives. And hello, real estate.
And it's been a great fit for you since.
It has. It has. I mean, it's not easy. It's not for the weak. Um, if you're used to getting a paycheck every 2 weeks or every week or every month, what have you, just because you show up and you do your work and then you get paid for that. And then you go into real estate where you show up, you do your work, and there's nothing that's guaranteed, right? So that was quite an adjustment. But I'm still figuring it out. But I'm still here. It's what I do, and I love it.
That's awesome. I mean, all jokes aside, especially when you said as far as like being in, psychology and social work and drug and alcohol counseling prior to real estate. And I'm just thinking that's a normal week in real estate, just with the therapy that we go through.
Yeah,
But take the jokes out of it. Like there's so much of that you have to use in real estate because at the end, I always say, yes, we are in real estate and people go, oh, you help people buy and sell homes. It's like, yeah, we do, but our real business is people. If you don't understand how to relate with people and be able to deal with people, that's 100% what our job is.
it is such a service-based industry, and I think that people just see it as a sales industry. And don't get me wrong, it absolutely, there's sales component to everything, but it's I don't approach real estate from a sales perspective. It's really service. And I'll tell you the best job I've ever had that really I use those skills every day. Talk about knowing how to read your audience almost immediately and kind of feel the room, was being a waitress.
Mm,
And I did that all throughout college. I made decent money because I was good at it. And again, it's about asking the right questions. It's about figuring out what their expectations are, um, really quickly. And it's the same thing with real estate, right? You have to set those expectations. You have to understand, in their mind, how does this process work? How far off are we? If they have anything way off, you explain it. Actually, that was our special last week. That's no longer our special. You know what I mean? And so it's so many skills I learned um, by being a waitress. Yeah.
so when someone comes to you and says, "Hey, we're looking for that 3 bed, 1.5 bath house for 150,000," and that's when your
I
former waitressing serving skills come out and say,
Years
"Yeah,
too
that
late.
was our special 10 years ago."
Yes, yes.
Yes.
No longer on the menu. Sadly, I wish it was. I wish it was.
Absolutely. Yes. All right. So on this show, we talk about first time home buying and first time home buying experiences. So would you mind sharing what your first time home buying experience was like when you were buying your first home? I'm assuming it was before you were in real estate.
Oh yes, long before. I, recently married, and so we wanted to buy. We were fortunate enough that we could. Interest rates, by the way, were in the mid sixes, close to seven. So we're talking 2001, and it was again, it was fun. Right? So a lot of people wouldn't say that, which should have been an indicator back then that real estate was for me. But I loved looking at homes. Um, I loved the whole process. Um, I loved sitting down with my real estate agent and going over, my must-haves, my this would be really nice, and then the things, that's not really all that important to me. Um, but looking back, I realized I should have asked more questions as a consumer. And you know, it's such a blur. I mean, I was so naive. I think I told you I didn't even know what school district the home was in because we didn't have kids. So that, schooling was so not even on my radar. And I feel like people now, we didn't have Zillow back then. We didn't have, God, I'm so old. We didn't have half the apps that, everyone is almost a pseudo real estate agent just by way of owning a cell phone, right? And downloading an app. So that didn't exist. I didn't have access to all of that information at my fingertips like the buyers do now. So buyers are so much smarter than I was back when I purchased my first home. But that's what I love to do. I love first time home buyers because they actually listen. And so if you give them some sort of recommendation 9 out of 10 times, they follow through and actually do what you suggest. So they're great to work with. I love that group.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun, and it's it's helping them through the emotional process as well as just walking through the steps of the home buying process. I just enjoy so much of that, and you're right on. So now that you have all this experience, again, 13 years, and growing in real estate, if you were to go back and talk to Isabel, the home buyer, first time home buyer, what would that conversation look like?
I think that I would focus more on the not so exciting parts of real estate, like the taxes and probably the school district, resale value. Look more at the comps. I mean, we did really well with our first time, but it was more luck because I didn't think to really educate myself or ask those questions. I was also in my mid 20s, which now, first time home buyers are in more like their mid 30s.
Mhm.
So I was very young, very naive. Um, I, you know, I, so yeah, even if you're not going to have children, or your children are of a certain age that they're no longer in schooling, um, it's always good to ask those questions just based purely on a tax standpoint. I mean, those were things that I didn't think of. I focused on the fun. That was me as a consumer. Like, oh, that's a pretty kitchen. Oh, I like that view. Oh, I like how the sun sets on that side. And I didn't want to focus on the boring aspects of real estate, which, numbers and resale and, that kind of stuff. That's pretty important at the end of the day, especially since it's probably, the largest investment that most people make in their lives. So, um, you got to ask the boring questions or have an agent that is willing to bring up the boring topics of real estate.
Yeah, so and that is so vitally important, because the kitchen can change, paint can
Right.
change, the pretty stuff, the cool stuff, the fun stuff, all that can change in a house, but at the end of the day, it is those hard, boring things that matter the most. So when you're talking with your clients and you're going through a house
Mhm.
and trying to get them to focus on the boring, what does that look like? Like, how do you get them there?
So we focus on the things that we can change about the home, and then we focus on the things that we can't. And like you said, whether a home needs to be remodeled cosmetically, um, that can always be improved. Where the sun sets, not so much. The school district, that's a touchy one. If they just had a baby, we're not going to focus on, well, what's the best school district, because by the time your child is old enough to go to kindergarten, a lot could have changed in that school district, right? So it may be the best sought out school district right now according to all of these websites, yada yada. But that doesn't mean that it's still going to be the case 5 years from now. So that's why I like to focus on tax. Tax isn't going anywhere, right? So your real estate taxes, they're just going to keep going up. um, and you stay on top of that because you can fight them if they go up too high, uh, which I did. That was another thing, a light bulb moment. Um, our real estate taxes went up really high one year, and I remember our neighbors selling their home and not getting anywhere near what they thought our home was suddenly worth. And so I fought it and I won. I just all I did was bring information comps, which is basically what I do now. You know what I mean? So that saved us yeah, it wasn't anything to get too excited, but it was probably $400 a year, um, just by doing my due diligence and being aware. So, and that is one hint that I will tell buyers: if your taxes are rolled in to your mortgage, right, and they're escrowed, and you're not writing that check that's painful to write every year, then you may not notice um, an increase that probably is a little overrated or too high or what have you. So keep your eye on that, even if it is escrowed, because you can fight it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Eh, when you're paying a mortgage payment, because unlike rent, your mortgage payment really doesn't change. But when it does, it usually is a direct impact because of a tax increase.
Right.
So when you went to fight your taxes, how difficult of a process was that?
It wasn't, but again, this was 2005. And so I gave them the addresses of the homes in my neighborhood. Now it can't be, a house in another school district. Obviously, it can't be another house in another neighborhood. I mean, these were literally within walking distance of my home, that sold nowhere near. And we certainly didn't have the biggest home in the neighborhood, so it sold nowhere near what the county suddenly thought our home was worth. And so you just, I mean, now it's so much easier to do that because, like I said, everybody has an app or access to a free app like Zillow or, whatever. I don't, am I allowed to even say those names? Whatever. But I mean, there's so many of them that it doesn't matter. You can easily find out how much your neighbor's home sold for. Um, and everybody knows a real estate agent because there's 2,500 of us here in central Pennsylvania. So I'm sure your cousin twice removed, whatever, can tell you what it sold for if you don't have an app. But if your gut is telling you, okay, that tax increase just doesn't seem to line up, what are they basing it off of? That's a good starting point. Just what is the hike based out of? And then go from there.
Good to know. So you basically showed up at City Hall with a fire, pitchfork, and a Zillow Zestimate pulled up, going, "Zillow said my house is worth this. How dare you tax me anymore? Damn it!"
Yeah. No, it was so easier than that. They didn't bat an eye. I mean, they really didn't. They were like, "Thank you," um, and the change was made, and that was that. So I don't think a lot of people did it back then. So I think that they were just impressed enough that I took the time to do it. There was no pushback. It was a very pleasant experience, and again, I still didn't even get my license for another 6 years. So I don't know what I was thinking, 6 or 7. So I'm like, I don't know. Um, but yeah, I love all things real estate.
I think it's awesome. I mean, I've got a few bills that I think I want to send your way and say, Isabel, just go ahead and knock these out for me because, forget about the Rocket Money app. You need the Isabel app, is what you
Yeah,
need.
I wish. Yeah,
Yes.
bills too, but it doesn't work as quite as easily as it did for that for real estate.
No, no, very true. So, well, real quick, because we were talking about it, realtor to realtor, and again, because no one's listening, that means you. The let's have the Zestimate conversation. So, a client comes to you, a first-time home buyer, a home seller, and has well, Zillow says my home is worth X. What does that conversation with you sound like?
It is one of my favorite questions. It's one of my favorite questions, and in fact, sometimes I ask my friends that question. Have you looked at your Zestimate lately? You might want to, because I have some ideas on that, and I'd love to hear what you think of it. I mean, it's a great conversation starter. I mean, love or hate them, Zillow's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. You have to give them props. I mean, their technology was amazing. They were ahead of their time, and I remember everybody. I remember when it first became popular. Everyone's like, "Have you heard of this? You can find out how much your neighbor bought their home for." I mean, it was just like it was the thing to do. Was on a boring Thursday night, just find out what everyone's home was selling for. Um, but yeah, no, that it's a great conversation starter. The thing is that like you said in the beginning, with psychology degrees and reading the room and knowing how to talk to people and asking those right questions, that's what Zillow cannot do, right? So
Right.
Zillow isn't coming into your home. Zillow doesn't know, that you upgraded your countertops, that you've added a sunroom, that you finished your basement, that you remodeled a bathroom, all of these things that give your home extra value. They don't know what your neighbor's home looked like either, right? So I mean, they're coming up with this price value based on their own comps and their own algorithms, but it's you can't replace somebody entering your home and touring it, and Zillow's not going to know that your home smells like you have 5,000 cats, you know, or that you're a chain smoker, right? And then, there's a smell. And some of those smells are very difficult to get out. And I'll tell you, I don't care what your Zestimate is. You walk into a home that has a very distinct, unpleasant odor, it's going to affect how many offers you get, how long it takes, and if you get your asking price and all of that. There's so many things that Zillow can't do, right? So that's why I love hate them. It's a good starting point. It's a great conversation starter, especially if you're thinking about maybe I want to list, let me see, and then you Google your address, and then probably Zillow will pop up first because they have a never-ending budget, and you're like, huh? You either think that makes sense, that's way too low, or oh my gosh, I'm going to be a billionaire. Either way, you're not really going to know how accurate it is until you get a human being to come out and really take a look and sniff.
Yeah, well, to that point, I mean, is there a dollar per cat deduction that you use when comping out a house? Like, if someone has like two calicos, a tabby, and like the smushed up grumpy face cat, Is
Right.
there a deduction to be used on an appraisal to come up with that
Nope,
actual value?
nope, there is not. And for all of the cat loving people out there, I'm a huge animal lover. I have 4 dogs. Okay. So and I'm paranoid that when I have people over, they're going to know right off the bat I have 4 dogs. So my friends claim to be honest people and they assure me I don't know what you're talking about. I don't smell anything. But I also I'm kind of like Monica from Friends, where I clean every night, probably for a half an hour, and like vacuum the couch, all that jazz. But there are certain things that you can't cover up. So when I'm showing homes and we open the front door and it's, you know, it smells like headquarters of Febreze, that's not a good sign, right? And a lot of agents too, when they have a vacant home, the worst thing you can do to a house is let it sit vacant for a long period of time. A home needs to be loved, right? And so they try to plug in everywhere and it also smells like Febreze. And that just immediately a buyer is going to think, what are they covering up? Like, is it, water smell, like dampness? Is it a pet? Is it smoking? Is it, what are they trying to cover up? So I'm all for, a home smelling great, but please don't use every outlet as an opportunity to plug something in, because that is the number one red flag when I'm showing properties. Um, so just throwing that out there.
So if we're making a list, things you don't want your house to smell like is cat litter box, a carton of Marlboro Reds,
Right.
uh, an entire factory of Febreze, or for the 16, 17-year-old bras that are out there, Axe body spray. All four of those bad smells that no one wants to get into in a house.
Right. If it causes migraines, let's tone it down. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, every home has a smell. This is like not the way I thought this conversation was going to go. We're talking about odors so much, but I mean, there's even homes where people are talented and they love to cook every night, and sometimes they choose to cook foods that linger in the air, the odor. Those, that can be a turn on or a turn off. Old school was, if you're doing an open house, you're going to bake some cookies so that people walk in and it smells like chocolate chip cookie. And, you know, I mean, sure, who doesn't like a chocolate chip cookie? But don't do that just for the smell. Um, I yeah. So just be aware of that. My point is that how do we get started with here? Zillow's not going to know that, right? Zillow's not going to know that you don't like to change your litter box, or that your dog hasn't had a bath in ever, or you hate vacuuming, or what have you. Even the vents, you know, uh, your HVAC system. Yeah, I mean all of that. The filters, like it just everything ties together. And so Zillow is amazing to a certain point, and then that's when you need a human being. And this business is so relationship centered, and clients for life has always been my goal. Very proud to say, repeat business is my main bread and butter, or referral. And that's just because it's that human connection, right? And it's you know that's so important, and that's something that no app is ever going to be able to give you. I don't I'm not afraid of AI. Bring it on. It's a wonderful thing. But I think this is a song, right? People need people.
Well,
So
here's how you can tell Isabel is a 13-year veteran, because we went from talking about Zillow's estimates to cat pee to nicotine, and then turned it right back onto this is about relationships. And you just can't do that with someone who's only been in the business for 6 months or a year. It takes a seasoned professional like you,
yes.
Isabel, to be able to do that. And no, so great job.
Thanks. Just bringing it back around.
That's it.
Yeah,
Love it.
I mean, but I do encourage. Look, if you're in the market, or you think let's say your bucket list for this year, next year, in the next 2 years is to be a homeowner. Um, Fantastic. If you know a real estate agent, people want to work with who they know, like, and trust, right? I mean, that's just a basic thing. I love my plumber. Shout out to Wilbur. Josh Wilbur is amazing. He's a just a great human being. I would hang out with him even if I didn't have plumbing issues. So there's that trust factor. So if you have a real estate agent in your life that you like and and you think you could trust that person, start asking them questions now. If your goal is 2 years from now, I would like to be a homeowner and stop paying rent or what have you, or downsize or upgrade or what have you. Or you're like, hey, we really need more space. Should I add to the house, meaning like a bump out, a little sunroom for more square footage, or should we just sell and buy somewhere else? Those are, it's not, sometimes people think you only call a real estate agent when you want to buy or sell. And I assure you, we love to talk. We're not at a loss for words, especially when it comes to homes. So if you have anything like, oh, I hate my kitchen. Like, I despise it. Should I dump, you know, anywhere from 20, I've heard of people spending over $200,000 on a kitchen, right? I mean, that's a horrible question to ask anybody. Like, how much does a kitchen remodel cost? How much do you want it to cost, right? Because even appliances alone, you can get your basic oven, or you can get, the creme de la creme. And, it's kind of like, how much does it cost to buy a car? It just depends, right? So do you put that money in? Because you can over improve on a home. And then when you go to sell and you're like, but Isabel, I told you I was putting all this money into my kitchen. How come, I'm not seeing that when I go to sell? Because you've over improved, and so those are questions that a real estate agent can really, really help you with.
Oh
And
yeah,
but we'll love helping you with that because we could talk about it all day.
absolutely. It's like you don't want to, when you're improving your home, you don't want to be an episode of Pimp My Ride from MTV, from back in the 90s where they're literally putting, screens inside of mud flaps on a 1985 Honda Civic. You don't want to over improve the house. You kind of want to keep it, do what you're going to do to get the enjoyment out of it,
Mm-hmm.
but not every improvement you're going to do is going to be a dollar for dollar or a dollar times 10
or,
return
or even 50
on those
cents.
improvements.
I mean,
Yep. A lot of times you're just going to, I know a lot of times we talk with folks that are ready to, oh, we're ready to put our house in the market. And now they have this entire page of projects they've been wanting to do for the last 10 years and never did any of them. And
right,
now it's like, oh, now we got to do them. And it's like, no, wait a minute. You didn't do them. Don't put money into something you're not going to get enjoyment out of. Put it
right.
towards the things that are actually going to give you some value when it's time to sell.
Yeah. So when it's time to sell, instead of, I've always hated these kitchen countertops, so let me replace them with something newer. Don't do that. Let the next buyer decide, because what the aesthetics that you like may not be what the next buyer want. But what you should focus on is all that deferred maintenance. Again, the boring stuff that you've been putting off, like the squeaky doors, or the weather stripping, or you know maybe light fixtures. If you've got some really hideous light fixtures, if sure, upgrade those. If you've got a ton of scuff marks on your walls and holes from frames and whatnot, sure, paint your home. That's always a good one. There are certain less expensive things that you can do to make your home more desirable without remodeling the whole thing. Um, and so I do recommend those, but it's usually the boring stuff. It's the deferred maintenance. It's the little things, like make sure all the light bulbs work. There's nothing more frustrating than when I'm showing a home, especially in the winter when it's dark, like at 4:30, and we enter a home and half of the light bulbs in the house are out. So we're walking around with flashlights. I mean, that's not a good way to sell your home. People really want to see what they're what they're buying. So things like that. That's what I recommend.
Yeah, I always dread when we turn the clocks back an hour because I'm like, I know I'm going to be in a house this coming week where it's going to be pitch black with no lights in any of the bedrooms.
Hmm.
It's a given.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So in 13 years, you've got to have some fun experiences. I know I do a little thing on the show called Tales of the House, where you know the interesting things that happen to us in this crazy business when we're out showing homes. I'm not going to ask if you have one because we all do. What is your most interesting experience with a home showing?
So interesting is a nice word to use for my first experience. Um, I tell this story a lot when I give a presentation, whether it's a customer, how to provide top level service presentation, or just any talk to any agent. My very first showing was through, I believe it was Zillow. It was a Zillow lead. Um, and it was his very first time also looking at a home. So we were both very new, wet behind the ears. Back in the days where it was cool to meet a complete stranger in a vacant home and not blink an eye or think anything of it, which I don't recommend. Please stop doing that. Please, please. And now, we shouldn't be doing that. We never should have been doing that, but now we really shouldn't be doing that. Anyway, so we both show up very naive. Of course, it's dark because it was the winter, and I'm new, so I'm trying to. It was a combo code. It wasn't a Bluetooth thing, and I'm fumbling looking for the combo code, and all of a sudden somebody answers the door, and I'm like, "Is this the wrong house? My bad." And he doesn't just answer the door; he answers the door in his boxer shorts and a tank top. Again, winter, mind you. No shoes, no socks, no nothing. And apparently, the home that we were touring was being rented out. So, this is the tenant who approved the showing. He knew we were coming. He just didn't feel like leaving the house because it's cold out. So he's there in his underwear. So I look at this, my buyer, who I just met, and I look at him and I'm like, I'm so sorry. And he's like, it's okay. If that's the worst thing we see tonight, it's going to be okay. It was not the worst thing we saw that night. So we enter the home together apprehensively, and the first thing we see is the family room, where the TV was and a couch. The TV was on, fine, no problem. There was a smell, but that's nothing to what we saw. What we saw was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of empty or semi-empty jars of peanut butter with the lids on, um, and pyramid formation.
Okay,
So
that's weird.
yeah, yeah, it
And
is.
these were just empty peanut butter jars with lids on.
How that they had, he had scraped the side with a knife, right? And so, like, you know how you can see. Anyway, yes, they were definitely opened. Um, they weren't like cleaned, so it wasn't like he was prepping to take them to some sort of recycling center. They were just in pyramid formation. So it was one of those homes where you opened up the front door and boom, the first room that you see is, a if television room, the family room, what living room, whatever you want to call it. And that's what we saw right there on the coffee table and on the end tables on either side of the couch. Pyramid formations, empty jars, somewhat empty jars of peanut butter. Same brand. He was very loyal to that brand, and I appreciate loyalty. So I'll put props. So we thought, okay, maybe this is some new art. Whatever floats your boat, right? We're not buying the peanut butter. I also, have to remind clients, we're not here to look at the furniture. We're not here to look at the decor. You have to do your best to remove those distractions and focus on the home. In this case, that was almost impossible because it wasn't just in that front room. There were pyramids of jars of peanut butter throughout the entire home. So when I mean, I'd have to at least 1,000. There was a lot of peanut butter eating happening in that house, and he lived alone. So I don't know. And again, I'm not. It's hard not to judge because I think the shock is It's not, no one ever says, and of course it wasn't in the agent remarks, don't ignore the peanut butter. No one ever tells you that. So I think he and I were both a little traumatized, but he did end up buying something with me, not that property. I did give the agent feedback. The tenant was there, for the showing, which usually is not an issue. It's not, what we want usually. But if it does happen, it happens. It's kind of like the seller not wanting to leave and the seller kind of lingering around. Your agent is going to tell you people don't want to look at your house if you're there. It's
Oh
awkward.
yeah.
It's just uncomfortable for everyone. But this was a tenant, so he didn't really care. He knew it was on the market. He agreed. He let us in. Um, but man, that was that. It was like a very interesting episode of Hoarders, but just peanut butter jars.
Just
But
so
there was a walking path, like jars on the floor. I mean, floor to window top formations of pyramids of jars of peanut butter. I don't know how else to explain it. It's something that I will never forget. But that buyer and I still joke about it.
I mean, I guess did you gift him a jar of peanut butter at closing when he did close on the new house or
No, 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 I did not. In fact, I don't think I ate peanut butter for a long time, and I love it. Um, there was something about that was just a little left a bad taste in my mouth, but I'm bummed. Um, but again, has there been an experience like that since? Probably not that. Woo, was not expecting that. But I have had some doozies where you walk in and the agent would be like, it needs a little TLC. No, it needs floor. Like it,
right?
like there's nothing. Or there are no doors inside the home, so none of the bedrooms had. We don't know what happened to the doors. Like just interesting things. Some foreclosures, those are sad. People are angry, and so they think, let me destroy the property so the bank doesn't get what the bank wants now, and you know what I mean. So there's just some interesting stories along those lines, but no other pyramid formations of peanut butter jars since. So
Oh man.
that's been that, and of course it was my very first one, and so I had a long talk with myself that night. Like, is this really what I thought? I thought it was going to be glamorous, and it was not. It did not start off that way.
No, the glamorous side of real estate that people see on Netflix is not the real day-to-day side of, hey, I'm between showings, so I'm going to grab some, convenience store chicken in between my next showing here while I'm sitting in the parking lot. Glamorous it is not.
No glamour. No, and I've seen some stunning homes, and so I mean that's always fun as well. I still, if I'm not participating in it, I still go to the parade of homes. Like I love going to homes. Um, but yeah, what I love most about this business is that it's never the same day twice. And I know that about me. I am a people person. I love meeting. The more people I meet in a day, the happier that day is for me. And so this industry definitely gives you that lifestyle where it's no groundhog's day here. Like it's different every day. Um, and I live for that. I do.
Yeah, no, it can be a ton of fun, and I'm glad you've had the career and the experiences that you've had, and the ability to share with your folks, to help make them better with all this time. And speaking of which, because we do need to wrap this up here, and I appreciate all the time you've been able to give this morning. What would be that one key piece of advice to any first-time home buyer that's getting started? What's the most important lesson or tip you would give them?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, the first tip is to really, as as much as you're in a partnership with your real estate agent that first time around, you're also in a partnership with your lender. So, unless you're one of the few that can pay cash, if you are getting any sort of loan to purchase your home, make sure that you're asking your lender all of those questions that you should be asking your lender. It's not just the price tag. It is, break it down for me. I'm a big proponent of buyer estimated cost sheets. Sometimes a file of mine will have like 5 of them, because I really, the more the more you know. And so while buying a home is a lot of fun, being a homeowner isn't always a lot of fun, as I just had a plumber out here this morning. So, you know, things are going to break. And so if you're already at your max with your mortgage, um, and your utilities, and you need to factor all of that. Is there an HOA, homeowners insurance? There's so much to it. And then things are going to break down. And, are you going to be able to be okay if you suddenly need a new roof, or you suddenly need a new hot water tank, or a furnace, or whatever it is, because those are big ticket items. So as important as your real estate agent is, it's the whole team, right? It's because it does take a team to get you to that closing table. And you've got to have the right team there to support you. And an agent is really important, obviously, but so is your lender. And really going beyond just what can you afford list price wise versus, you know, your overall cost of living. And is that something that you can be comfortable with? So those are things that would probably be my number one. Just
That's
because
it.
just because you qualify for, $300,000 doesn't mean that you need to buy a $300,000 home. Especially if that's the max, because things are going to break, life happens, or your car breaks down, or you get sick and need to take time off work, or what have you. you know really think of the big picture and not just that price tag, which a lot of people get focused on, when there's so much more to that.
Yeah, it's a great point, because going back to what you said, when we first started, I think a lot of folks, and we're guilty of it as well. You get hung up on the cool, fun stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and really where your attention should be is on the boring, because that's where life happens, in the boring, when you don't expect it to get all of a sudden super exciting because the boring went sideways.
Right. Yeah. And the super exciting part is the stuff that nobody likes. You need a new toilet, or, stuff like that. What, because I really do want clients for life. I don't ever want to run into one of my former clients at the grocery store and they're telling me how they're struggling because they bought at their max approval and they didn't realize how expensive it is to maintain a home. And so I really want to be as transparent as possible, because I don't ever want a client to come back and say, I really regret buying that house. And luckily, I don't think that's happened. I really don't. um, and I don't ever want it to, especially for that reason, because they didn't look at the big picture financially, at the very least.
So, Isabel, you just mentioned focusing on having clients for life. Are there events or the things that you do to help re-engage with your past clients?
Yes. And so, early on, I realized, especially when you're a newer agent, a lot of your clients are first time home buyers. And so what I realized early on was that I kept getting asked the same question after closing. So they have the keys. Let's say they've been settled in for 6 months. I'll get a call. Hey, Isabel, can you recommend a good plumber, a landscaper, a roofer, electrician, um, plumber, if I didn't already say that, normal housekeeper, you name it, a security company. It doesn't matter. There's so many different things that you could potentially need, or you will need. Like, you will eventually need an electrician. End of story. Bottom. You will need one. You will eventually need an HVAC company to come out and service, and which you should do maintenance anyway. So instead of continuing to add to my list of vetted people, companies local that I trust, I decided to start hosting an annual event where I bring all of those vendors together and invite the community. So you don't have to be a client of mine or a past client of mine. But definitely those people certainly get invited personally, but we advertise it. We had our first one last year. It was called Community Connections. We had it in our parking lot, and it's just an opportunity for our community members to meet local vendors that we trust, that we use, that we recommend face to face before there's an emergency, before, something explodes in your house, a pipe or what have you, or your roof caves in. You've already met them, you have their card, you've already asked their question, some questions that you might have, and it was a success. I mean, it was my first time running an event that large, so there's lots of things that I'll do differently, but that happens in September, and so you know I think it's great because it's a relationship business, it's a community business. I want to support local businesses that treat my clients well, treat my family well. I'm a loyal person that way as well, and so why not bring them both together? And it was a great event. It was just a lot of fun. It was a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. Learned a lot about hosting something that size. Um, but all in all, I would do it all over again. I mean, I had somebody there that declutters and organizes, because sometimes you've got that one room in your house that you're afraid to open the door because it's every box that you've ever owned. You don't even know what's in there. You don't want to know. Like, I mean, it takes a village. And so I like to bring that village together and connect people. That gives me the most joy, honestly.
That's amazing. That's all. Yeah, because you're always going to need someone when you own a home. There's always someone you're going to need, and it's always great to have someone that you can trust. Like you had a emergency plumbing experience last night and this morning,
Hmm.
and because of the relationship you have, you knew exactly who you were calling, and you knew you didn't have to worry about A, the quality of work, or B, what you were getting charged, because you knew it was going to be quality work at the right value. So no, I think that's so important and such a cool event to have for the community.
Yeah, I think, this a personal touch. I mean, everyone can just go on Google and Google, plumbers near me, and you know, you're going to get a slew of them. Or you can ask someone that you trust, like your real estate agent, hey, what plumber should I call when I need a plumber? Because you will need a plumber, unless you're really handy, which I am not. So, yeah, absolutely. I would rather get a recommendation from someone I know than from the internet. So I like to think that I'm not that insane. Most people would prefer to get a recommendation from someone they know than just randomly select somebody offline or online. So that's why I thought let's just bring everybody together.
100% agreed. Isabel Worrell, she is a veteran. And
Yeah.
let me do this. Isabel Worrell, she is a veteran agent with Turnkey Realty Group for 13 years. Isabel, thank you so much for being part of this today, and thank you for the great conversation. Really appreciated it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having this. Is my first time. I can check it off my list now. I'm so excited to do more podcasts, I guess.
Absolutely. They're like potato chips. Once you get one, you just can't stop. You keep moving. But if you would like to get Isabel's information, we'll have her information and contact info in the show notes. And Isabel, once again, we appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
We'll be right back after this. Oh, welcome back. Thank you to Isabel for joining us today here on the First Time Keys pod. Hope you guys enjoyed that as much as we enjoyed the conversation. Went a little bit longer than what I initially had expected, but still a great time, great information, and just enjoyed the conversation. And I want to go back to something that she hit on, which is relationships and community. Because at the heart of it, I hope you got from it that for us, for agents like myself and agents like Isabel, this isn't about chasing a commission check. This truly is about helping someone make the biggest purchase they're ever going to make. And most importantly, find home. It's not just a transaction. it really is building that relationship and letting someone get that new start, and make that next chapter in their life. And agents like Isabel, like that is, those are the things that you really enjoy, and the other agents that you enjoy working with in this business, because they get it, and they have your needs and your wants at the very front of the story. So again, hope you enjoyed it. Isabel, thank you so much. And that will wrap us up for episode 5. We'll see you guys next time right here on the First Time Keys podcast.